Thank you, moderator, and I'm delighted to be here in the studio this morning to discuss matters relating to education, especially in our country, Uganda.
Well, I must say, I like your attire.
Thank you.
You look very, very smart.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that.
And just, it has that touch. There's one Pan-African that I remember so much, and indeed many that had that kaunda, but this is a bit very modern. And really, I must look for one like that if it fits well on me.
Yes, I had a friend who was telling me one time that you are dressing like a revolutionary, and I said,
and the likes of Mariam Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, and I think that's where I had the thing of Kaunda suit. I don't know. I was in there. So when I see that, well, I'm really into that. Now, to begin with, Paul, earlier on this show, we had a topic in our newsreel, which was the Ministry of Education coming up and saying they want to ensure that this habit of private schools beginning very early and then closing the time early comes to an end. And as a person in the line of education, just want to get your opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a positive move. Maybe just to put it right, it's that they begin early and they end late, I think. They don't stop early if you're talking in terms of lessons.
No, you're saying term.
Yeah, ending the
they
term.
begin the term very early. And then along, they send children back, but then come pick reports, you know, away from the Ministry of Education calendar.
Yeah. Yes. I think most schools have created their own calendar, and the reason is that they want to rush into what the students are supposed to cover during the entire year. I was disappointed when I moved to quite a number of schools, and I come to understand that by the end of first term, the teachers tell you that we have covered the entire curriculum for the whole year. Then the rest of the time, they are revision, they are preparing students to answer questions and those kinds of things. It's really disappointing.
Now that means the child is packaged so much.
Exactly. Exactly. In 2018, I had an opportunity to visit Finland, but I got interesting facts. One, in New Zealand, in fact, not in New Zealand, Finland, the school does not start before 9 a.m. in the morning, and it cannot go beyond 2:45.
What?
In the afternoon.
What do they learn in that short period
That is
of time?
it. And the other interesting fact is that children are not allowed to go to school before they reach the age of 7. And they are supposed to be in school for about 9 years. That is mandatory. But after 9 years, it's optional. But you will discover that Finland has one of the best education systems in the world.
They begin at 9?
Begin at 9. It cannot go beyond 2:45 in the afternoon. A child must start school
at 7.
At 7. Then mandatory time or the number of years, 9 years. So after 16 years, a child has an option either to go for vocational training or other kind of education. But for us here in Uganda, 3 years, 2 years, a child is in school. I visited a friend of mine and I found something very disturbing. A child who is 2 years is in a kindergarten somewhere, but is taken for coaching, comes back at home at 6 in the evening. I don't know.
Now that one is a very exhausted human being.
Yeah,
by the age of 15.
In fact, there are serious problems in our education system. I have always said this. I went to visit a school, a cousin to my friend. When we went there, the boy came, just took a piece of chicken and was eating while standing. And he was telling us, see you later. I asked, where are you going? We're going back to class. And this was a Sunday. I don't know what's wrong with our education system. I think the ministry has to do something about that.
Yes, this thinking that education... And you see what is very disturbing is the ministry sets up how the term must flow, what must be covered in this particular time, even the time per lesson, everything is well done. But enforcement becomes the problem, I think.
Exactly.
And sometimes we must say truth. Sometimes also I want to believe maybe conflict of interest, because you may find that many people I know that are in this arena own schools. And then some policies, I think, may find challenges along the way. Because where I come from, we said that a monkey may not be a right judge when it comes to issues of the forest. Because that is where sometimes the problem comes. But away from that, we just looked into that briefly. Let's look at today's topic, which is can school revolutionize to promote thinking classes? Now, for the benefit of our viewer, let's break this in simple terms to get properly, because TV is instant communication.
Yes. Here we are asking, is it possible for the schools to change such that the students that they teach demonstrate that they are able to think? That's what we are discussing here. We are bringing it up because what I've realized that when it comes to thinking, people take it from the surface. In fact, when you tell a person that you don't think in these areas, somebody will be mad at you. But when it comes to learning, thinking is something which is very deep. That concept has not been well grasped by most of the people. When we are talking of thinking, the students must be able to analyze, they must be able to synthesize, they must be able to evaluate, they must be able to comprehend, they must be able to demonstrate knowledge. But all these are not practical in our classes, I can say.
What is happening there? Because when I went through this education system you're talking about, there are things that require you to think.
In fact, we think that we think when actually we don't. There's in education something that we call metacognition, thinking about the way you think. This is absent. Now, when it comes to most of the classes that that happen in our society, it's not about thinking, but it's about remembering. In fact, remembering is not an aspect of thinking.
Because there's something that you are taught.
Yeah,
so you just remember.
Yeah. I want to give you an example where thinking can be applied. Or I want to give you a weird experience that I went through. There's a place I go to for sauna. Now, in this place, when you go, you pay 10,000. You are served with the tea as many times as possible. Tea, popcorns, and nuts. As many times as you want. 10,000. Now, one time I branched there, it was raining, and I wanted to take some kind of tea. Then I asked, can I be served the tea? They said, we don't sell tea here. But I told them, whenever I come here, you go for it. They say, yes, this tea is for people who go for sauna. I said, I'm going to pay the same amount that I pay when I go for sauna. Can you serve me tea? And I said, no, I cannot, because this tea is purposely for people who go to sauna. The second scenario, in the same place they sell, I don't know the right vocabulary for mlokonyi. Mlokonyi and cassava. It's at 6,000. I go and ask, can you serve mlokonyi? It says yes, 2 pieces. Now, I feel I still want more cassava, but I'm full of mlokonyi. I no longer want mlokonyi. I ask her, can you add me 2 pieces of cassava? I says, no, we serve mlokonyi with cassava. So if you are not taking mlokonyi, we cannot serve you cassava. Then I told her, okay, I don't want more mlokonyi, but can you give me the cassava? I give you the 6,000. She said, no, we have to serve with this. Now, what these people were doing, they were thinking, they were remembering what they were told, that you have to be, you have to serve this with that. I expected them to think that if this person is paying the same amount of money, why should we deny him? That's where the issue is.
Because your purpose is to sell and make money.
Yeah, they should have thought in that direction. But for them, they only remembered what they were instructed when they came to start working. And that is a problem. That's what happens even in our schools. I was telling you that our schools are not about promoting thinking, but they're about training students to cram the information they will need when they are answering the questions during the examinations. That's why I told you, after here, my viewers who have got the internet, they can search about Finland. In Finland, there are no standardized testings that we have got examinations at the end of this year, whatever. They don't have them. There's this gentleman I was mentioning last time, Paul Freire, who wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And he was talking something about the banking theory, where the teachers go to class and he equated them to bank clerks who simply go to class to impart knowledge into the students. But they don't draw the knowledge from those learners. So we have got a very big problem. Our children do not think. I was telling you the other time the questions that I think. The question which requires the what, the mention, and whatever, do not promote thinking. One time I looked at my kid's book when she came home and they were asking her to name the head of school, where she comes from. Does that require thinking? Simply remembering what you were told when you went to school, and that is it.
When did Uganda attain her independence?
Yeah, when did Uganda attain her independence? Now, I want to take you through something. The other program I was talking of, the IB program. At the PYP level, which is the primary level, there are no standardized tests, there are no examinations done. At MYP, no formal examinations done. At DP level, which is our A level, there are external examinations, but more emphasis is given on the core subjects, the extended essay, the theory of knowledge, and creativity, action, and service. Then the internal assessment. The projects the children do in school, those carry the highest mark. But for the PYP that I have talked of, what they do, there's something they call an exhibition. It's a culmination. They demonstrate understanding of what they have been learning in the previous years, but in different forms.
Isn't that something like what a government or country has gone to now with that lower secondary curriculum? Exactly.
I have always told people this is something that we should embrace strongly.
But then the challenge is, it is a very good move. And to be honest, our viewers, if you look at the reviewed curriculum for lower secondary, it is very superb.
Exactly.
But then we have implementing challenges and cost. I've spoken to some of the teachers that seemingly argue, saying there is what is required and they may not be able to provide it. The kind of learning when you are still grappling with funding our education system that we desire to have, this critical thinking, thinking classes, involves more of practicals.
Exactly.
Involves more resources put in, and we still find this struggling. With the lower secondary curriculum, there are many schools that may tell you they have challenges in what is required for them to execute this program.
In fact, I will agree with you on both fronts, but the most critical issue at that level is the implementation part. Why? Because the teachers do not have the requisite skills to implement that curriculum. What the government should have done, I think they should have thought of training the teachers first, thoroughly. The issue of resources, well, I agree with you, resources are required, but I want to give you an example of this respected gentleman I talked of last time, Peter Tabich. I happened to attend the Teacher Global Award in Dubai in 2019. And this is what Peter did. Peter comes from a very remote place in Nakuru, in Kenya, prone to famine and drought, those kinds of things. But what he does, he gets, the salary he gets, 80% of that money goes back to these marginalized families. He pays for them school fees, buys necessary, whatever. Now, there are interesting facts here. One, that he donates 80% of his salary to the students, and 95% of those students come from poor families. Now, his students work on renewable energy, and they competed in Intel International Science and Engineering Fair. This was in Arizona, in the US. Then he later took, in fact, he won this award by the Royal Society of Chemistry. He harnessed the plant life to generate electricity. He did not go to Nairobi to buy some of this stuff. He just used the local environment. That's why I was telling you last time that for us in education, we assume that our local environment is the best laboratory that you can use, because we teach things that are of global and local significance to the learner. Why should we go and teach about River Mississippi when our children here have never seen River Nile? Why should we? That's where the problem is. We are thinking that the cost of implementing this is very high. Fine, it is in some aspect, but not entirely that. Because we can exploit the resources in our natural environment, and we come up with very serious...
Recently, regarding that direction, I saw UNEB and requesting this issue of continuous assessment. And it was also another hectic thing, that you find these are good initiatives, and I must say, even our viewers, we all want to have children, we want to have pupils, we want to have students that have the skills and can compete in the 21st century. We want to bring out a person who is ready for the job market and has the skills the job market wants. Now, when you look at your perspective, good, you've given us so much about the developed world. And one would say they could have gone through the challenges we are going through today, and they have learned and been able to get there. But there is this aspect of, let's understand our education system, the nature of our parents, their priority to education, and we don't only look at the elite class that may view things the way you're viewing them. But remember, we have those in the village who government is still even running after to take their children to school. We still have those schools that maybe classes are held under the tree. We still have those schools where it's a building divided class. P1 is facing this direction, P2 is facing this direction. I was able to visit one or two and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But these are the real, you know, let's be realistic. So in this situation, how do we move forward to this?
Change of mindset. Change of mindset. The government has come up with very, very good plans. You are here. I've not been so much involved in them, but I've had people who have benefited from it. The recent one is the parish development model. People in my village have been given money. 1 million. They told them, go and buy chickens, if you want to go and buy a goat, go and whatever that you think. In fact, before receiving this money, they come up with plans. When they are going there to apply for that money, they come up with very good plans. But none of them has implemented that. Then the blame will be shifted to the government. If you can be given 1 million, okay, use this money, buy at least 2 piglets, fail to manage them for some time and say, I tried, but maybe maintaining was a... But in this case, you have not bothered to buy. Somebody goes to the market, buys fish and says, the president has thanked us this time. So this money goes on. How are we going to change our economic status if we cannot be serious with what we are doing? In fact, I am not part of the ecosystem where people, every time the government has done this, the government is doing a lot. In fact, the president, whenever I hear him, most of the things that he focuses on are how to empower somebody to move from where he is economically to the next level. But our people are adamant, I can tell you. We need change of mindset. There are people who still don't know that education has value. I've met several of them. And surprisingly, not only those who are destitute, but even those who are doing very well. I know of a gentleman who is considered one of the richest in the area, but I was told paying school fees for a child is a struggle. So I think people need to change and know where we are going and the value of education.
Now, there is one thing that is becoming common, mindset change. Everyone talks about mindset change. How do we begin the journey of mindset change? Because now our talk, when we talk about the parish development model, it's one of the pillars. When you are politicians, now experts like you, mindset change. Whose mind are we changing? How are we starting? Because it seems we have a problem. Our perspective of seeing things may not be right on various issues. So where do we begin this thing called mindset change?
Everywhere, in schools, at home, in the studio here, in the streets, everywhere. There's something that...
And how do we start? We're talking about education, ensuring that our children have the skills, our children can be critical thinkers. Yes. That's what our education system should be doing. Where do we start?
The way we teach these critical thinking skills is the same way we should teach this mindset. You will forgive me for making reference to what I have gone through. There is something, when I was talking about the attributes of Nana profile the other time, there is something that we call open-mindedness. And this is something that we teach to the learners. We teach, observe, and assess it, the learners. How do you demonstrate that you are internationally minded or you are open-minded?
In a class, in a class of 300, just is one stream. You have another stream of 200. You see, how are you going to assess these learners?
That's where the problem is. That's where the problem is. Last time I was talking about these numbers in schools. I told you that the biggest class I've taught is that, but right now, for us here in Uganda, the challenge is that the classes are too big. Now, are our people willing to appreciate the fact that this population is too big for us? The answer is no. When you meet most of them, they say no. Uganda is still doing well in terms of population. We need to have more. Then you ask them, yes, we need to have more. So where are we heading? We have 200 students in class today. You want us to produce? I was reading some article the other time, and the projections by the World Bank revealed that by 2050, the population of Uganda will have reached about 70 million people. But where are we going? Now, 70 million people, how are you going to manage? Just research by Vaki Foundation shows that by 2030, countries in sub-Saharan Africa will need an extra 69 million teachers to be able to implement the universal primary education as well as universal secondary education. But something that shocked me was World Bank carried out the same research and they said, out of the number of teachers that we think we have, only 90% meet the minimum requirements for a teacher to go to class and teach. So you can see where we are. The teachers that we have, the qualifications are not there. So
what are you talking about qualification?
No.
I mean, we have qualified teachers.
No, we don't have qualified teachers. That's what we think. Because we think when you go, whoever has passed through college
and they passed
and is given a certificate is a qualified teacher. But what process has this teacher gone through? It's the same thing with our students here. They are getting distinctions and whatever, but when they reach somewhere, they cannot demonstrate. The other time I was challenging somebody, how possible can it be that a student who was the best in math in my district, and when you look at the paper, this person passed highly, has metric conversions, kilograms and whatever, but this person goes to, you send him to a butchery to buy meat, and the person who has never gone to school cheats him. How?
They've messed with a weighing scale or something.
Yeah, he is not able to demonstrate. So we don't have qualified teachers. Like I told you, in Finland, for a person to qualify to become a teacher, you must have a minimum of a master's degree. That's a fact. For us here, we have got certificate holders who went to the college because they failed. They didn't have any other option. Then they ended up going to... And don't be surprised that some of these go to these colleges because when you have a relative will sneak you in even if you didn't qualify to go.
The government is upping actually the qualifications for teachers.
In fact, the government
and
has
now it is
delayed.
a degree requirement.
That should be the case. The government has even delayed.
And we're in transit. I think they have a period of either 10 or 5 years to ensure that they phase out those that do not have these degrees.
Yeah, but these ones who are going for the degrees, what process are they going through? It's not the question of attaining a degree.
Yes.
What process are you going through to attain that degree? That's what matters. For me, I'm not interested in the degree you get, but the process you go to. Does it qualify you to get that degree such that you go and stand before people's children and start teaching them?
Well, Paul, this is quite interesting, but I have to go. Paul, you said it's not about money as the biggest priority here. It is about using the surrounding around us. It's about having teachers that have been empowered with their skills. But one thing that comes out is we still have a challenge in the people that pass on education. You said a degree is a very good requirement and government should have moved there, but how have we packaged? Because you can only give what you have, you can't give what you don't have. So let's look at how we've prepared our teacher as a country.
Well, in terms of preparation for the teachers, we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. Like I was telling you, this teacher-centered method of teaching was criticized by this philosopher, John Dewey, over 100 years ago, that a teacher cannot go to class, stand in front of the students, and start talking to them. Over 100 years ago. Now, somebody was saying that this colonial education has killed us. there's something that I'm still working on to find the truth. Is it true that this kind of education we have is colonial? Because my father went to school during colonial times. He ended in, were they calling it grade 6 or something of that kind? He went to Nyondo PTC. He came out very competently and headed school for so long. There are so many people who meet me and tell, your dad was my teacher. And they have been successful. Why is it that during colonial time, my father could stop at grade 6, goes to school and becomes competent? Somebody who has a degree cannot do that. Is it true that this education is colonial? I need to know when it started, but if they are really talking of colonial education, my father was an example.
They were taught by the whites.
The first DO in our district, Toronto, the late Monyani from my district, I was told he ended at grade 6. There are districts that are not performing and they have got district education officers with master's degrees. So what is the problem? This is something the ministry has to work on.
So where have we gone wrong? Because if it's the same system, is it the ones passing on the education?
No, it's not the same system.
Because one will tell you, I remember the late Bale Francis, may his soul rest in eternal peace. He always told me how they were taught by whites, and it was something to brag about when you tell him about his accent, pronunciation, intonation, and all that. But, well, for us, we were taught by whites. Talked of sisters are here, brothers, and bazungu, and it was, you know, and I don't think the syllabus by then differed. Maybe, I don't know, I wasn't there.
No, where the problem is, I read some article, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I came across something where they were talking of some schools in the US that also use the teacher-centered method of teaching. And I wanted to know the history of that. They said it happened around, I think it started around 1968, when the population had increased and there were so many pupils in class and the teachers could not handle. I could not dispute that, because when they talk of the size of the class and I compare with what we have, that becomes a challenge. So here, without beating around the bush, the biggest problem here is that our population does not allow us to move away from teacher-centered to. Because if we do that, a normal school should have an average of 20 students in class. If you did that, how many schools do we need in Uganda? And do you have the infrastructure to accommodate all this? The answer is no. Now, if the issue is population, what do we do? In Uganda here, I want to tell you.
Maybe just before even we go to that, for clarity purposes for our viewer, when you talk about teacher-centered, what is the alternative for not teacher-centered? Define these two, let's be clear on them.
The alternative for teacher-centered is learner-centered, meaning that learning is in the hands of the student. The learners take ownership and they take responsibility for the teacher is simply there to facilitate the learning process. But learning happens entirely.
So what you're having is the teacher comes with the, of course, there's the syllabus and teaches children either mathematics, chemistry, and then when an exam comes, they have to remember what they were taught.
Do you know how bad our education system is that a teacher who taught chemistry 20 years ago still uses the same information he had? Or if it's a geography teacher, a history teacher, that's what he uses. If it's a textbook, they have stuck to a single textbook. Last time I was condemning the use of textbook, that one, it limits the learner thinking. Because students cannot, they are not able to weigh, they are not able to evaluate these sources and say maybe this is right, this is wrong. And their thinking is only limited to a singular perspective of the author of that book. That's why in our system I told you, fine, a textbook is a tool that can be used, but we do not solely depend on the use of textbook. We have to vary the resources that we use when students are investigating any kind of information. But here, that's the problem that we have. So when you are talking of a teacher-centered method, the teacher comes to class, tells the students everything that he has. Then he gives them questions to answer in 20 minutes. But we have got different categories of learners in the class. When you are teaching the concept of addition of fractions, you have 100 students in class. Must you give them the same questions? must you give them the same questions? Because here you are teaching the concept of addition or fractions, maybe with the different denominators. Why do you give the same? Because these students don't have the same level of understanding. Why don't you vary these questions? If we are using 1/2 plus 1/3 for the low achievers, then the high achievers you can use 9/120 plus this. Such that the high achievers are challenged at their level, even these low achievers are challenged at their level. But the problem here in Uganda is all learners are the same. We call it one size fits all.
Because they all sit even the same exam.
They sit
at the end of the day.
That's the problem. That's the problem. One of these categories of students is not
They're supposed to understand.
No, I'm telling you, I told you we have got 3 categories of learners. Those, they have been the middle and the lower. If you give the same questions, there is a group you have left out. Because in learning, you need to challenge the learner thinking. So if you give questions that a lower achiever cannot attain, then that child is not going to benefit. There's something that we call the cognitive load theory. If you think of a situation where you go to a primary 1 class, then you take, I don't know if you have read any of the plays by Macbeth, if you have done literature. You present, or you take this chemical formula to primary 1, that you want them to interpret this. It doesn't work. Now, when you are giving these examinations, if you give examinations the lower achievers can do, then you have not challenged the high achievers. If you give questions the high achievers can do at their level, then the low achievers, you've not helped them. The questions must vary according to the learner's abilities.
Paul, are you being real? Are you being realistic? Can this happen?
It can. It can. I told you the IB program last time, they have the higher level and the standard level. A student who cannot work out the high level question will go for the standard level. And this is how we assess development of learners. Last time I was telling you something that if you bring 2 students here, one comes with 0, then the other one comes with 80. You teach them after 1 month, you give an assessment. The one who came with 80 has got 82. The one who came with 0 has got 25. If you are a realistic assessor, this child who has got 25 has outperformed the other who got 8 in terms of development. Because when you look at the percentage growth for both, this one who got 25 has a higher percentage growth than the other one who added 2 on 8. But for us here, we are always looking at the highest. What has this one achieved? What has this one got? I'm still referring to Finland. You go and read after here. For them, they don't have a list that this school has been the best. They don't have that. In Finland, that's not there. That this is the best school. That this is the best teacher. They don't have that. And teachers are not accountable. They say teachers are responsible. They are held responsible for something, not accountable.
I'm just looking at this education system that you're pushing for. One, the truth is also accepted that if we are to move in this direction, there could be so many sacrifices, including how do we have a lesser population. But also you notice that even financially, how much would the government have to invest in such a system? We talk about assessing every child's competency.
Let me cut you short, Mr. Moderator. I was reading a certain article and I was looking at the population of China. Why does China have such a big population? I was reading something about their then President Mao Zedong, who said, one, because China was faced with one of the most serious feminist situations in China, and said, we must produce people such that we provide enough labor in the agricultural sector to produce food, which was something very good. Then two, I think because of the wars they had after the Second World War and whatever, they said, we need a population that is going to protect our vast country, which is very positive. Now in Uganda here, we want to compete with China in terms of population. I was telling somebody, that's why I challenge our education system. I was talking with somebody, and this is an accountant at a district level somewhere. I was telling him that the population pressure on the land in Uganda is higher than that of China. He was saying, China has over 1 billion people, Uganda has just 40. I told him, no, I'm talking of the pressure the population exerts on the land and the resources we have. The population pressure in Uganda is higher than that of China. Fine, China has a bigger population, but the pressure exerted on the resources and whatever Uganda is higher. Now, you talked of the issue of resources. The issue of resources can be resolved. One, if we prioritize and say Uganda wants to see education move to the level, we shall do it. I was looking at different statistical data, and I realized that in UK, the third most important ministry is the Ministry of Education. In the US, it is the third. In China, it is the 6th. But science and technology is the third. So when you talk of science and technology, I would put it also under education. Now, when we go to money, you'll agree with me that our members of parliament are very vocal, and I appreciate that fact. I was looking at a clip that passed some time back, and there's a member of parliament who was saying, this one, the president is doing these things, we are in a developed country, we cannot move this time of the year, we do such things, Uganda is just... Now, I got data that if you compare the GDP of Uganda and that of UK is like 75 times more than that of Uganda.
Uganda, yes.
If you look at the salary of a member of parliament in Uganda, is about 35 million, if I'm right. A member of parliament in UK, they get annual pay. If you convert the pounds they get yearly, and you divide that amount of money by 12 months, you realize that a member of parliament in the UK gets about 32 million. But our members of parliament here, every day they're on stage. The president is doing this. And they are taking a lot of our money. But when the president has done this, the president's budget this time was this amount of money. Why does he accept to take this? Why do these members of parliament
So you're looking at cost of administration and the political expenses.
Yeah, and I have no concern with that because I don't know much about it. But when these members of parliament tell us that what the government is spending on is not appropriate for our level of development, they should not move this side and they take all this amount of money. You cannot be paid in Uganda more than what a member of parliament in UK is paid. Then you come here, you go to the platform and you start shouting for us. No, I think shouldn't be the case.
Well, we must come to the end of this to leave room for the next show. But what are your final remarks?
My final remarks, I encourage the government to keep investing in education, because if you want to transform any society, education is number one. If you don't, it will not. But the issue of population, I think something has to be done. Something has to be. If nothing is done, Uganda is a landlocked country. We don't have so much that we export. You'll agree with me that any serious economy, the major sources of income are taxation and export. How are you going to tax poor people and you think you'll get enough money to run all these big budgets? It's not possible. So I just encourage the government. The track they have taken with the lower secondary curriculum, I 100% support it. What we need is to train the teachers such that they become competent enough to implement this curriculum.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, and thank you so much, our viewers, for being with us from the hour of 6:30 till now. We really appreciate, and we can't wait to have you tomorrow in Good Morning Uganda. Very important thing to consider is education is a lifetime investment. Educate a child, an educated nation, well, there's so much it can achieve. But we should have real education and not just saying we went through school. Together, we believe if we make this a priority, we can achieve that. Have a lovely day. See you tomorrow, the good Lord willing. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra. This week on UBC.